All right. Hello, shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to say, call on Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rekak Kodash, giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, King of kings, Lord of lords, God of gods. Much love to Yahweh Shai, his only begotten Son, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Shout out to the elect, whoever they may be among the children of Israel. Much love to the beautiful prophets, whoever they may be among the children of Israel, which are, the elect. Shout out to the Akim, the brothers that's in the word, and they not from a camp. They go out to the highways and byways, do everything in their power to show you how Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, that they love him and they fear him. Videos and studies, and just keeping the spirit, all together. Much love to you, brothers. Shout out to you sisters, you beautiful Aqua, the very few women that's in the truth. The very few women that's in the truth. And whether you got a man or not, you still fear the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh. You listen and you learn in silence. And today, title is riches gotten by deceit. Yes, riches gotten by deceit. Because right now, some terrible event had happened, to the American people, aka the white people, the lower level white people. They had a tariff event. Let me get that up real quick so I can put it in better words. Well, pretty much the tariff event is just a scam to put more money in the pockets of these elites and these greedy politicians and the president and the rest of the other people that keep him in power. So let me see. And then it's like scams through the stock market. They call them investment scams and forms they take. One form of them is called boiler room scams. It says high-pressured salespeople work over investors, urging them to buy overvalued or non-existent securities. It says pump and dump schemes. Scammers enthusiastically pump a stock or other asset to inflate price, then sell them off their own sales. So that's just one. And then we can go to the tariff scam. It says Trump's confusion fuels online scams. It says Trump's scattergun opposition on tariffs is causing uncertainty around the world. It says, and cyber criminals are exploiting the confusion. It says, following months of tariff threats, they've been visibly registered fraudulent domain registrations, 301 in the first quarter of the year. It says to launch a wave of scam and hate campaigns. It says, and said a pre-crime labs, the threats research team for security firm B4AI. It says this domain registrations are originated in wide varieties of countries, including China. It says Iceland, the Netherlands, Italy, Thailand, Canada, and Japan suggest a possible wave of mutual retaliation. It says several domains found in the set pose a risk of misleading business into financial scams. It says particularly those within industries recently impacted by tariff changes. It says the researchers. It says there were some instances of domains containing anti-tariff content, potentially indicating activist or protest-oriented efforts. Beyond this, these websites could possibly be attempting to spread false political messaging or misinformation by providing clickbait topics. So that's not the one I was looking for, but it adds on to it, so we can go back. Okay, this is the one. I found it. The other one was kind of on topic, but then again it wasn't. But it is that is a part of it, that they releasing scams and people getting their money stolen. But this one is on point. This one is going to be on point. Come on. Come on, dude. What the fuck? Get this out the way. Move this. No, bro. Don't nobody go there. Says retirees stunned as market turmoil over tariffs shakes their 401ks. It says some are changing their spending habits while the others are worried about their future quality of life. So it's fucking with they money, these tariffs. It says Americans nearing retirement. Recent retirees said that they were anxious and frustrated following the second day of the market turmoil that hit their 401ks after President Donald Trump's escalation of tariffs. And this is a part of the scam. It says, as the impending tariff shook the global economy Friday, it says people who were planning on their retirement accounts to carry them through their golden years said the economic chaos was hitting too close to home. It says some said that they are pausing big-ticket purchases and reconsidering home renovations, while others said that they fear the quality of life will be adversely affected by all the turmoil. It says, I'm just kind of stunned, and with so much money in the market, we just sort of have to hope we have enough time to recover, said Paula, 68, a former occupational health professional in New Jersey who retired 3 years ago. It says Paula spoke on the condition of anatomy because anonymity because she feared retaliation for speaking out against Trump administration policies. She was worried about what lies ahead. It says, we've been trying to enjoy the time that we have, but you want to be able to make it last. Paula says Friday, I have no confidence here. It says Trump fulfilled his campaign by promising this week to unleash sweeping tariffs, including the United States' largest trade partners, in a move that sparked fears of a global trade war. It says the decision sent the stock market spinning. It says on Friday afternoon, the broadcast of S&P 500 closed down 6%. It says the tech-heavy NASDAQ dropped 5.8%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell more than 22 points, or about 55%. It says, as Wall Street reeled Friday after China hit back with tariffs against the U.S., millions of Americans with 401ks watched their retirement funds diminish with the stock market crash. So they pretty much, the stock market crashed and then it was restored shortly after. So all these people that had their money in this, they lost their money, and all that money ended up being stolen by the presidency, by the government, by these wicked politicians. It was just a scam to get their money, and it's fucking with these people's livelihood. It says I looked. It says while millions of Americans with 401ks watch their retirement funds diminish along with the stock market. It says I looked. It says at my 401k this morning. It says in the last 2 days, that's lost $58,000. That's stressful, says Victor Fetz. It says 54 of Georgia, who retired last week as a senior director of risk management and compliance at Verizon. It says if that continues, I can't stay retired. That's what's happening to these lower level Edomites, that like they say, the people who trust in the shadow of Egypt, and these lower level Edomites, these lower level Edomites, they trust and they put their money literally into the system, other than some of us not trusting these banks and not trusting these companies, and investments. We just keep our money on in a personal bank at home. You become the bank. But that's not to say to these people that actually believe in the government, believe in their programs and different benefits, and or sometimes you just carrying too much money. You carrying too much money in an instance, and you gotta give somebody else your money to stash it because you carrying too much money. So, or investing. But at the end of the day, some of these old people, they fell for the little tariff thing, and next thing you know, the stock market started crashing in out of nowhere. I guess Trump lifted the tariffs, and then the stock market went back to normal. And a lot of these people that had their money that was part of the stock market and they 401ks and whatnot, they lost a lot of money. And like he said, if it keeps going on, then he can't stay in retirement. A lot of old people gonna have to come out of retirement and go back to work, and this is what they get for trusting in the shadow of Egypt. I don't know. Well, let me see what's up with the 401ks after this, because I'm not too much into 401ks and all of that. I don't know all that information, but we can look that up too. It says Trump said the tariffs will force businesses to relocate manufacturing production back to the U.S. and bring back jobs. Yeah, that's what he wants, but it's not going to work. Some investors and businesses groups have pushed back, saying they are likely to lead to higher prices for U.S. consumers. Yeah, it's going to cause inflation, higher inflation, and it's going to cause trigger serious collapse. It says our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by the nations near and far, both friend and foe alike, Trump said recently, but it is not going to happen anymore. But that's a lie, because the decay of the nation is happening from within, so it's not necessarily the other nations it's actually happening by the people that hold America together. You know, these greedy white people that live in America together is destabilizing it and taking it apart from the inside. So it says the president has acknowledged the potential pain coming to some Americans' wallets, but he continues to staunchly defend his agenda. My policies will never change, he posted to social media Friday. Later, he wrote, only the weak will fail, meaning that he's talking about the balance between the rich and the poor, and the balance is widening. The middle class is being destroyed by the cause and effects of the inflation and what Trump is doing with the tariffs, and the poor is pretty much becoming much worse, and the conditions are becoming much worse, and the rich is taking all, the ultra rich, they taking all the money. They heaping it all to themselves. We're gonna get that in the Bible. It says only the weak will fail, and that's fucked up. Because they and what Trump is telling the people, you know, these MAGA people and these Americans that believe in America, that they don't care about them. You know, if you ain't ultra rich, if you ain't got it like that, then that's on you. You know, but as far as they're concerned, they're fine. You know, they're not worried about everybody else. They're only worried about themselves. It says Trump's tariffs are steeper and more widespread than in any modern American history. They are potentially even broader than the tariffs in 1930 that historians say worsened the Great Depression. Some Americans think about retirement told NBC News that they feel that their economic stability is being played with because they trust these governments. So we can get out of this. That was good enough. And we can look up that part too and see what that means, because I'm not much into 401ks and all of that. It says 401ks refers to a type of retirement saving plan offered by many employers. It's a tax-advantaged savings account where employees can contribute a portion of their pre-tax income to save for retirement. These contributions are deducted from your paycheck before taxes, and the investment growth is also tax-deferred until retirement. So that right there is kind of weird, because in return, in a way, if you don't have a good job, if you don't have like a good job or a good career, then it will deduct your check, and your check will seem a lot smaller, and it will put it towards the future. So when you get older, but at the same time, it don't make no sense, because you can take your money yourself and stack your money up yourself with raw cash, and you can still be taken care of, you know? So this is like a way, in a weird way, this is for these governments and these companies to pretty much hold your money and take some money at the same time. It just seemed too weird, you know. I would never do this. But this is for the Americans that believe, you know, in their retirement checks, you know, in their retirement plan, they believe in their jobs. This is for Americans that actually got the money to do that. Like, oh, per se, a guy earns $2,000 a week from his job, then he could take out and actually put towards something like that. But say a lower class citizen that his job isn't worth much, he couldn't afford to do that, you know. I wouldn't do it. It don't sound like a good idea. But that's what that means. So we can go to the Bible scripture of what's happening, because the rich is robbing the poor, and they taking what's left of the middle class. They're trying to take it all. This is Isaiah 56, verse 11. It says, King James Version, it says, yeah, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough, and they are the shepherds that cannot understand. They all look their own way, everyone for his own gain from his quarter. So these people are not going to stop until they have it all, until they've conquered all, this world domination plan and the full control of the people, you know, with the technology and then with the cash flow and all that, and with them preparing for the collapse of of America, and then not only the collapse of America, but through all other nations. They all are part of the same plan, you know. And right now, the rich is just saying, you know, fuck it, we're just gonna take from these people because it's gonna collapse anyway, and then we're gonna leave them behind. And when everything fall apart and everything is destroyed, we're just gonna come back and rebuild it, you know, because they believe in that depopulation scheme, you know. So for right now, that's exactly what's happening. They being robbed, you know. They being robbed. I mean, the Israelites, we being robbed, but you know, it's much worse for the American people, you know, that believe in America, and you know, the MAGA groups and shit. It's much worse for them, you know, because everything that they believed that they thought that the government was gonna help them with, ain't none of that happening, man. It's just them taken from them. That's pretty much what's happening. It's making them broken. It's making them poor, and at some point they're gonna have to stand up to this governmental tyranny, you know, and they're gonna have to fight back. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 10, verse 8. It says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches gotten by deceit. It says the kingdom is translated from one people to another. So right now, that translation is beginning. And the Lord is ready to reappoint the children of Israel back into power, you know, and slowly but surely, you know, these governments, you know, these white people that rule and they run shit, they're losing their power, they're losing their gain. You know, we all know that America is dying from the inside, you know, from the inside, you know. America is about to be no more. So what they trying to do is just say, fuck it, we're gonna sweep the board and start the game over. And we to take all the money is ours. We're gonna prepare, because they feel like in their mind it's not only for greed, but they feel like it's better for society, which is like a psychotic level of thinking. Like, oh, we're gonna kill y'all all, we're gonna kill you all, you know, for America to be reborn. Y'all all gotta die, and we're gonna take the money and we're gonna live, and we know better, and we have a better purpose, and we'll have better for you guys in the future. You know, just let us take care of it, let us lead. And these people think that they know what they're doing, and they don't. They don't know what they're doing, you know. Oh, I want to get that one. This is always a good one. This one is a good one. Because this story is always going to remind you what is happening. It says, because the story is not necessarily about the white people, it's about the Israelites. It's about the Negroes, Mexicans, and the Indians and their struggles. So I was just giving you an update of what's happening with these white people. They get robbed, man. They getting robbed by their own people. So it says, but like it says, if Satan stand against Satan, how can his kingdom stand? It says it cannot stand, but it shall have an end. So, you know, when they start fighting each other, that's when the kingdom's gonna come to an end. And we're getting close to that. That shit is just super evident. It says, this is Luke chapter 16, verse 19 through 31. It says, there was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and in fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. It says, and there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, it says, which laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs that fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So this is referring to the other nations, the other people that came and took advantage of the Israelites when they fell. You know, from back then all the way till now. It says, and it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. So the beggar went to heaven, and the rich man died and he also went to heaven. Because we all know, according to the Bible, that there is no, the only hell is the living condition that you're born in. You know, living here, the Lord, living here in this world. When you're born again, the Lord will determine whether you're going to be rich or you're going to be poor. You know, whether you're going to be or it sometimes it don't come down to money. Sometimes it can just come down to infirmities, deformities. You know, he could degrade your mind. You know, you could come out with retardation, or you could be born blind. You know, it's all kinds of things that the Lord can do for your judgment. So you go to heaven for judgment, and then when it's time for you to, when the third and fourth generation pop up, you know, when you pop up, you know, third, fourth generation, and you born again, then you live out whatever judgment that the Lord gave you, whether it be good or it be bad, you know. So, you know, Lazarus and the king, they died and they went to heaven, and this is what happened. It says, or the rich man, it says, and in hell he lifted up his eyes, being in torment. So it says the rich man died and was buried. So he was buried. It says, and in hell. So when he came down to earth again, he was born again, and he was very poor, extremely poor. And it says, and he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeing Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom, meaning that he was in heaven, he was in riches, you know. It says, and he cried and he said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. It says, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in the water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented by this flame. So it's a code, like a double-sided scripture. In the minds, that's what people gonna get, that, oh, he went to hell and he was burning forever and the demons was torturing him. But people who actually study, they get the other side of the code, you know, which is talking about being poor and switching places, you know, because that's what's gonna happen to the elites, and that's what's gonna happen to the elites, and that's what's gonna happen to the Israelites. They're switching places right now, you know. It takes time. It does take time. That's why it's taking years, you know. And how you doing, brother? You know you're Israelite, right? I said, you know you're Israelite, right?
Oh yeah, my name is Adam, bro. God.
That's right, man. Shalom to you, brother. That's all I wanted to tell you, my man. Stay blessed, man. The Lord is for you, man. Nah, I do things on my own. No camp. So. A Muslim?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I just Israelite thing, but you know that's a part of the same shit too. So shit. But shalom, man. Enjoy your day, man. That was just for you. Stay safe. Blessings, man. Hell yeah, man. Always good to tell brother the good news. Good news. But they switch places, you know, in the story, and in that moment, you know, that's what they don't. And since the children of Israel were slaves, you know, then the elites and their children are going to be slaves. So the way the Lord is playing it, you know, the Lord is allowing the elites to prepare and to defend themselves with all they got, you know, and they doing as much dirt and They doing as much planning and they doing as much stealing. So when the world comes to an end, and because the world got a beginning, it got a life, it got a death, and then it got a rebirth in the story. So when the world is reborn, they want to be the ones that come out the ground and rebuild it. That's what the white man want to do. So with him, he, instead of him rebuilding it, it's gonna go wrong, and all of that shit is gonna fall apart. And the same plans that he got, it's gonna rot within. It's gonna be power struggles between they own people in them underground cities. It's gonna be factions being split up. It's gonna be the weak and the powerful being split up. It's the same rules that they applied to the people, during the time of the end and the collapse. Is the same rules that's gonna apply to them. So in the story, it's going even switch places before. It's going to switch places before the end comes. So right now, that's exactly, we in that process, because we gonna get the kingdom, and they gonna get put into slavery, and they gonna be the bums. They gonna be the beggars. So it says. Let me repeat this. It says, and he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented by the flame. So that torment is the slavery, it's the poverty, it's the suffering, the oppression, the murder, the disease, the famine, the plague, almost everything. A lot of curses came upon the children of Israel, and they suffered through it. So when it's time for the white man to jump to walk into this flame, they gonna get the same curses that we got, and even worse. So it says in all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. So even his children, even his generations, even his people won't be able to ever ascend again. They gonna be stuck in poverty for forever. They gonna be homeless. They gonna be in slavery. They gonna be working without money. They're not gonna have all the millions. And they know the Bible prophecies too, and they know that it's coming true. So right now, that's what they're doing. They're like, fuck it, if we gonna be criminals, we gonna be criminals. We just gonna ride it out to the end. We just gonna take from these people. We gonna do whatever the fuck we want. We gonna rob them. We gonna kill them. We gonna do everything in our power to keep power. And what's that guy, Albert Pike, and the Book of the Dogma? He a Freemason, like 33-degree Freemason, one of the highest ones. And that's what he said. We'll do anything and whatever it takes. It doesn't matter. We're gonna stay in power. Nothing is gonna stop us. We don't care what we got to do to stay in power. Fear, peace at times. We can use love against you. Racism. We're gonna do whatever it takes to stay in power. So it says then he prayed. It says, then he said, I pray thee, therefore, Father, thou wouldst send him to my house, for I have 5 brethren, that they may testify unto them. It says, least also, it says, come into the place of torment. And Abraham said unto them, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. Let them hear them. And he said, nay, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they will repent. It says, and he said unto them, if they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded the tongue, though one rose from the dead. So it didn't matter if a supernatural event happened, they still wouldn't believe it, because that's what's going to happen. Yahweh Shem Yahushai is going to be glorified through the prophets, Yahushai, and through his angels and the prophets. And regardless of the fact, these Americans are still not going to believe. They still not going to take it into consideration. Like right now, you got the street prophets that's preaching the truth, and then you got the prophets you got the preachers that's in the pulpits preaching lies. Now, if they were right, then the prophets wouldn't be on the streets. They would be preachers inside of the church. but there is a divinity. There is a divinity, you know? Oh, we can get to that too. And that's that divinity, man. And then at the same time, like they said, you got all the proof that you believe, you know, and it's been many a times in history where Yahweh sent, through Yahweh Shai, he sent angels, he sent prophets that were born down here. They came down here and came to spread the gospel and came to spread the word, you know. And the signs that the white man is seeing, if he see these signs and he see these things happening, this would be that a long time ago, it would have been his chance to repent. But he refused to repent. He refused to give up the kingdom. He refused to set free the Israelites. He refused to set them free, you know. But from the division between the preachers and the prophets, it says, and this is also could go with white man versus white man. It says, suppose ye, this is Luke 12:51 through 53. It says, suppose ye that I came to bring peace, to give peace on the earth. It says, I tell you no, but rather division. It says, for from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided. It says 3 against 2 and 2 against 3, meaning that the house, everybody is getting split up to the factions. You got the prophets that believe. You got the prophets and the 1/3 that believe. You got the 2/3, which are the wicked Israelites that don't believe in nothing at all. They reject the Messiah. Then you got on the devil's side, you know, Esau's side. You got the rich Edomites versus the poor Edomites. You know, you got a lot of divisions, man. Different divisions, different worlds that's against each other. You know, like no different than you know, the African gods versus the Indonesian gods. Different factions, high division. But in America, and generally, that is what's happening. It says, the father shall be divided against the son, and the son shall be divided against the father, the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law. Let me get some of the full chapter. Full chapter explains a lot about this division that's happening. The believers versus the non-believers, you know. The elites versus the elect. It gets deep, you know. So let me see. It says, this is Luke chapter 12, King James Version, verse 1. It says, in the meantime, when they were gathered together innumerable multitude of the people, and so much that they trod one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples, first of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. These are the fake pastors, wicked prophets. You know, it goes into them. It says, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. It says, therefore, whatsoever ye spoken in the darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear of the closest shall be proclaimed upon the housetops. It says, and I say unto you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, after they have no more that they can do. It says, but I will forewarn you. It says, whom ye shall fear him which rather he hath killed have killed have power to cast into hell. Yeah, I say unto you, fear him. Right. It says, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 farthings? It says, and not one of them is forgotten before Yahweh. It says, but even the very hairs of your heads are all numbered. It says, fear not, therefore ye are of more value than many sparrows. That's to the Israelites. It says, but he that denieth me before men shall be denied before the angels of Yahweh. That's true. Meaning that when it's time for you to be judged, it'll be angels that'll vouch for you that was like, oh, he didn't acknowledge Yahweh Shem Yahushai, he didn't pray to him, he didn't claim the Lord, he didn't worship the Lord, he didn't do any of that. Especially for those of them that go up there and lie and before Yahweh Shem Yahushai in judgment. You got people like that. Be like, oh, I've heard of you, and I see the guys on the street preaching about you, or I heard your name. You know, some of them may remember the name or whatever, but in time they forgot, and they went by what they ways, and they didn't pray, they didn't do any of that. You know, and in fact, you know, they didn't even acknowledge them. They just walked past, they saw them preaching on the highways and byways, and they went about their day. And this is every day, you know. So that's exactly what they'll do, you know. That's what the angels will do. They'll be like, nah, bro, this is he lying, he not telling the truth, you know, he doesn't believe in you. You know, judgment is going to be quite scary for those of them that reject Yahweh Shem Yahushai. It's going to be quite scary, you know. It says, and whosoever shall speak a word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But unto him that blaspheme against the Holy Ghost, it says, it shall not be forgiven. So it's talking about the Israelites being forgiven, meaning that whether they be bad or good, they're going to be forgiven and receive inheritance in the next life. But the one who blasphemed the Holy Ghost, which is the white man and the Edomites, they gonna get the bad side, and they gonna get forever cut off. They gonna be in the flames of torment and poverty, and they gonna go into slavery. It's not gonna be good for them. And you got a lot of these white people that blaspheme Yahweh Shem Yahushai. They blaspheme the Lord, you know. And they get everything from the Lord for right now. They get in the world, they get the riches, they get everything, and it's not enough. They still they don't even want to acknowledge Yahweh Shem Yahushai. They want to go against him. So it says, and when they bring you unto the synagogue and unto the magistrates and powers, take ye no thought how or what thing ye shall answer, or what ye shall say. Right, it's gonna come to you, and you just gonna start talking about the gospel to these same, what it say? It says, and the synagogues and these magistrates and powers, meaning that the strongest people, the strongest leaders, they all criminals, you know, they all wicked, and it's gonna be some prophets that's gonna step before them and tell them this message from Yahweh Shem Yahushai, because it's gonna get to a point to where these prophecies is gonna be hopping out the book, and they're gonna manifest more and more into our reality, and it's gonna be scaring the shit out of people. So they're gonna start looking for these prophets, these street prophets, these leaders, you know, these groups, you know, these people like me, you know, and other people that believe, just simple believers, you know. They're gonna start looking for them, and they're gonna go after them, because they're gonna feel like if they destroy them and get rid of them or punish them, you know, that this would prevent Yahweh Shem Yahushai from coming, you know, because it's gonna scare the shit out of people. They're gonna be afraid of what's coming, you know, and they ain't gonna want to lose their livelihood. They're not gonna want to lose the power. They're not gonna want to lose the kingdom. But this message is gonna be pushed, and you're gonna have some of the strongest prophets standing before the most strongest, the powerfulest white people in the world. You know, whether it be the secret societies, all the way to people that own these nations, they gonna stand before them and give them the same message they've been giving everybody on the street. It says, And they will, it says, for the Holy Ghost shall teach you in the same hour what ye ought to say. And that's what's happening now. They ain't even, they a lot of these prophets, you know, whether they be solo or in a group, they all standing before these governments and before these people and before these white people, you know, and they telling them what they telling them what the Bible is saying, you know. It's double-sided, you know. Some of them gonna literally stand before the strongest people on the earth, the strongest nations in the earth, and they're gonna tell them this message, and they already doing it now. They going to the highways and byways, and they telling everybody the message from the Bible and what the Bible is truly saying, compared to what they're actually, what these wicked preachers and these college cemeteries are teaching, you know. It says, and one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brother. It says that he divide inheritance to me. It says, and he said to him, man who made me judge over, it says, man who made me judge over judge or a divider over you. And he said to them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life, it says, consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesseth. Right, it's not about materialism. It says, and he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a rich certain man brought forth plentifully. It says, and he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? It says, and that's what's going to scare the elites. That's what's going to scare all these people. You got all this riches, you got all this power, you got all this command. You know, you got all the artillery, and all of that is just materialism. It's nothing that's going to save you from what's coming. Because the riches and everything that the Israelites possess is not from the world, you know. So it says, and it says, and it's funny because it's pretty much saying too that these elites and these rich governments, these wicked politicians, these presidencies, they already poor. You know, because when Yahweh Shem Yahushai glorify himself through his son Yahushai, and they come down on this world, none of that, you're going to become the poorest people on the planet, rather than the Israelites that had the gospel, which was the richest thing on the earth. That's not from this earth. They're going to be the richest because they got the gospel. They got the covenant, the new covenant. They got the name, you know. They got the promise. They got the inheritance. That's going to make them the richest. And all that materialism going to fly out the window. Watch. As soon as this collapse happens, as soon as this World War III go from paperwork to guns, you know, when it starts going down and this nuclear bomb go off, that's when it's going to complete the covenant, the new covenant with the Israelites. They're going to become the richest on the planet because they got the word. It's already inscripted, you know, that they would get the inheritance. And what it say? Let me go. I'm done reading this part. Damn, this thing tripping. Well, it says in Isaiah 49, chapter 49, verse 16, KJV, it says, "Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me," meaning that every time that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai look at his hand, the words of Israel is written on him, so he can never forget us. He can never forsake us. We are a part of him, just as he is a part of us, you know. And that's beautiful, and that tells you the obsession, Yahweh's obsession with his children, you know, is that they are a part of him. We are a part of the covenant. We are a part of the true riches, and the true riches are not of this world. So it don't matter how much money that these evil, greedy dogs are stealing. You know, none of that is going to amount to them having the Holy Spirit, and none of them is amount to their names are not the real inheritance. Like Yahweh Bashem Yahushua said, let them have all that. You know, let them have all that. But what you have is something more precious and something more special than they can never have. You know, and what the white people know is that without that, they will be in total denial. Yahweh Bashem Yahushua don't even like them, and on top of that, they've been bastardized from not only his sight but from the world too. And soon it's gonna come into play to where the world is gonna cast the white man out. You know. And that's exactly what's happening. They're in the process of doing that right now. Oh, that's a good one. Come on, Bible Gateway. You got all these ads and shit. Says, I have seen, because the roles are switched. The kings are sitting on the ground, and then the servants are on the horses, you know, and that's the Israelites. The Israelites are on the ground, and then the servants are on horses. And this can go back to slavery times, you know, and all the way till now. It says, I have seen, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 7. It says, I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. The whole roles and the whole narrative is switched. So we can go to the full chapter and read some of that for a closeout. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 1. It says, dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savior. It says, so do a little folly him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. It says, a wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart is at his left. So that's the white man. And then you got the Israelites, those of us that are a part of the elect and the 1/3, our heart is in our right hand, meaning that we do the right thing. We ain't perfect, but we know when it come down to it to do the right thing. We know certain paths that we got to choose, but we ain't perfect at it, but we know. It says, also, when he that is a fool walketh by the way, his wisdom faileth him, and he saith to everyone that he is a fool. Right, so the elites that make fun of the children of Israel and complain to them, to Yahweh day and night, them are the idiots. They are the fools, you know. They called the other people, they called the Israelites inferior. The blacks, the Negroes, the Mexicans, they called them inferior when they are their inferior ones. So we got a couple examples of this so-called kingdom, that this kingdom of America. You got the bums, you got the drug epidemics, you got the hospital scams, because if you ain't got no insurance, you can barely get procedures done, or it costs millions and millions of dollars to get a small golf ball size of cancer cut out of you. In this nation, you got all the food industries and all the snacks and all the candy and shit. All of this shit is rigged with pure drugs to keep you using and using and using. And people wonder why they wake up one day with forms of cancer and forms of sicknesses, because of the foods that they think is healthy is actually poisonous. You got you got them letting the criminals run rampant. Super. You got the criminals run rampant. You got these gangs and these different groups and militia groups doing whatever they want. They got connections with the government, to allow them to do certain things and do whatever they want, whether they be connections or vigilantes. They allow them to do whatever they want. You got the especially for the children of Israel, you got them living in these busted ass, broke down, roach infested ass apartments. While the white people, they live up in these deep in the mountains, in these glass house mansions and fucking skyscraper building, castle size mansions and shit, homes and shit. And you got the fucking what's another one? I pretty much named a lot of them. That's all I've got. But and these are the idiots that control everything. These elites and these wicked politicians and these evil ass, White House representatives and shit. These racist ass people, they are the fools. So it says, if the spirit of the ruler rise up against thee, leave not thy place, for yieldeth pacifieth great offenses. Yielding pacifieth great resistance. Saying if you surrender to Yahweh Shem Yahushai, then none of this would happen to you. It says, this is an evil which I have seen under the sun, as an error which proceeded from the ruler. It says, folly is set in great dignity, and the rich is set in a low place. That's right, the Israelites are in a low place. I have seen servants upon horses, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. He that diggeth a pit shall fall into it, and whoso breaketh an hedge, a serpent shall bite him. It says, whoso removeth stones shall be hurt wherewith. It says, and he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. I don't know that one too well. It says, if the iron be blunt, he do not whet the edge. It says, then he must put to more strength, but wisdom is profitable to the direct. It says, surely the serpent will bite without enchantment, and a blabber is no better. Right. It says, the words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow up himself. Right. That's exactly what these elites is doing. That their own words is going to fall upon them, like it's doing right now. And it happens from the elites to the lower level Edomites, both sides. The ditch that they dug for the Israelites, they fallen into it. So it says, the beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and at the end of his talk is mischievous and madness. Yeah. To sit there and use those nuclear events to destroy the world, to heap up all these riches into yourself, and when the world ends, you just got all this money that's worth nothing to yourself. It's just madness. It says, the labor of the foolish wearieth every one of them, because he knoweth not how to go to the city. It says, woe to thee, O land, when the king is a child, and the prince eat in the morning. There it is. And I'm about to close out. And with that, calling Yahweh Shem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kodash. Much love to anybody that's listening. And, whether they listening or not, I know that the opposition is listening. And, messages to them. And then as well as to us. And to the next episode, calling Yahweh Shem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kodash. In the name of Yahushai, Shalom.